Welcome to Rathalos Watch. Today, I'm introducing a new long-running video series titled Should X Monster Return to Monster Hunter Wilds? In our first episode, we're kicking things off with a bang by discussing one of the most requested and intriguing monsters from the Monster Hunter universe, the King of the Seas, Lagiacrus. The question is simple: should Lagiacrus return to Monster Hunter Wilds? To answer that, we need to break down the monster in greater detail, including its first appearance, overall reception, memorable aspects, visual design, combat style, and finally, whether it should return to Monster Hunter Wilds. We'll discuss how Capcom could potentially bring back the monster, what they should or shouldn't change, what new interactions they could implement, and how the monster could fit into the next generation of Monster Hunter in terms of mechanics and design philosophies. Without further ado, let's begin. Lagiacrus was first introduced in Monster Hunter Tri, which originally released for the Wii on August 1st, 2009 in Japan, and later in the USA on April 20th, 2010. He was classified as a Leviathan and was the flagship monster of Monster Hunter Tri. Hunters first encounter him in a one-star village quest called Guts, It's What's for Dinner, in the deserted island biome. In this quest, hunters aren't able to kill him, but are introduced to Lagiacrus and the underwater combat system, a major selling point of Monster Hunter Tri. In this quest, you had to kill underwater herbivores and collect their guts. When Lagiacrus appeared, you could fight him, break his parts, and chop off his tail for early crafting materials, or simply run away and just kill the herbivores instead and finish the quest. However, you couldn't kill Lagiacrus even if you wanted to until the 5-star village quest called Fell the Lagiacrus. Before that, you meet him again in the 4-star quest titled Trial of the Sea Dragon, which is a repel mission where you fight him on land until he retreats. Lagiacrus is mostly remembered as the first monster you fight underwater in Monster Hunter. No previous entries had anything like this. Capcom decided to be bold and implement a dedicated underwater combat system, and they needed a monster to go along with it. Hence, Lagiacrus was born, and this is what he is most remembered for. Many people have fond memories of fighting this beautiful monster both underwater and on land, while others hated it and were turned off by the underwater combat. Underwater combat in Monster Hunter was an interesting experiment, to say the least. It's quite divisive among the community. Some despised it and never wanted to return, while others loved it and wanted back. Personally, I didn't like the underwater combat at the time. It was clunky, especially with the Wii controls, which weren't really designed for Monster Hunter. It's much easier to play with a regular controller. Even though I didn't like the underwater combat, I believe that maybe in a distant future, it's possible for it to make a comeback. As technology and hardware improve, it could become easier to implement features that were challenging before. In my opinion, the addition of underwater combat was too soon, and the hardware and technology just weren't there yet to make it play well and feel fun. I don't believe underwater combat is returning to Monster Hunter Wilds in any shape or form. If it was, Capcom would have showcased it already or bragged about it in their marketing. But then again, maybe they are saving it as a surprise, though I highly doubt it. It is also important to know that Lagiacrus did come back in the 4th generation of Monster Hunter in Monster Hunter Generations, which released in Japan for Nintendo 3DS on November 28th, 2015, and in the USA on July 15th, 2016. An expanded version was released exclusively on Nintendo Switch on August 25th, 2017 in Japan, and a year later in the US on August 28th, 2018, under the title Monster Hunter Generations Ultimate. He returned strictly as a land monster, with the underwater combat completely cut out. Even though underwater combat is most likely not returning, that doesn't mean Lagiacrus isn't returning in the next entry of Monster Hunter. In fact, the lack of underwater combat in modern titles wasn't the reason Lagiacrus never returned. Capcom admitted to having difficulties implementing Lagiacrus and his skeleton into Monster Hunter World. The executive director of Monster Hunter World, Kaname Fujioka, explained why they didn't use Lagiacrus in Monster Hunter World in an episode of Capcom's Monster Hunter Radio podcast. The core issue was that a large part of its body stays on the ground. Fujioka mentioned that the team made another attempt to integrate Lagiacrus into Monster Hunter World's Iceborne expansion, but they couldn't make it work. Believe it or not, Capcom actually had a prototype of Lagiacrus in Monster Hunter World and originally planned to use him in a trailer, but since they couldn't get it to work, they replaced Lagiacrus with Rathalos, having a turf war with Anjanath. Here you can see the original prototype footage for yourself. It's crazy to me that Lagiacrus did exist in Monster Hunter World at one point, and Capcom really wanted to get him in there. They tried, but just couldn't make it work properly. They tried again with Iceborne, and that failed too. If you ask me, I believe they did the right thing. I've always believed that if you're going to do something important, you must do it right from the get-go. Capcom didn't want to give fans a half-baked version of Lagiacrus, and I commend them for that. With the history lesson of Lagiacrus out of the way, it's time to talk about the monster itself, including its visual design and combat style. Lagiacrus is known for its sleek, serpentine body and intimidating presence. Its crocodile-like head with a wide, flat-out snout and sharp teeth gives it a menacing, predatory appearance. The small, piercing eyes add to its fierce look, setting the tone for what makes Lagiacrus so memorable. The creature's long neck leads to a muscular body body covered in tough dark blue scales. Along his back are sharp spines and fins, often lighter blue or turquoise, creating a striking contrast. These features enhance Lagiacrus' imposing appearance even on land. Lagiacrus' sturdy limbs end in claws, ideal for gripping and tearing prey. Its powerful tail ending in a fin-like structure helps with balance and serves as a deadly weapon. One of Lagiacrus' most distinctive traits is its ability to generate electricity with bioluminescent organs along its back and sides glowing bright blue when it charges its attacks. This blend of physical strength and elemental power makes Lagiacrus a truly unforgivable monster in the Monster Hunter series. Lagiacrus is essentially Capcom's take on what a crocodile monster would look like in the Monster Hunter universe. To top it all off, he has thunder powers, making him even more awesome. This monster can range from the smallest gold crown size of 2,330.7 centimeters to the largest gold crown size of 3,310.6 centimeters. He is also weakest to the fire element. Lagiacrus has two combat versions. The original Monster Hunter Tri version that includes both underwater and land combat, and the 4th generation Monster Hunter Generations Ultimate version that takes place purely on land. The footage you're seeing now was captured from Monster Hunter Generations Ultimate on my Nintendo Switch, and that's the version I'll be covering in this video. If Lagiacrus returns to Monster Hunter Wilds, it will likely be the land version unless Capcom surprises everyone with something crazy, which I doubt. Lagiacrus has a variety of attacks and abilities. If you stand very close to him and hug his body, he will charge up electricity and discharge it to defend himself. Sometimes he will tilt his head back and launch forward to throw out a ball of electricity. Getting hit with his thunder attacks will start building up paralysis ailment, so avoid them at all costs. He may also perform a side head sweep if you're in front of him. When enraged, his attacks become more frequent and aggressive, and he will attempt to electrify you more often. The crystals on his back will also pulse with lightning. One of his most devastating attacks is the full side body slam, which has a far reach and covers a lot of distance due to his long neck and tail. One of his most iconic abilities is spitting out a large electric ball that spreads into several electricity ground shocks. Avoid the initial ball and the subsequent shocks on the floor. Occasionally, he will charge from a distance, causing significant damage if he hits you. Be ready to dodge or anticipate it. Another annoying attack is when he wraps his neck around to the side of his body and then does the same on the other side with his tail. This attack has an insane reach and can hit you from either side if you're close. One reason I enjoy fighting Lagiacrus is that cutting off his tail is very satisfying. It's easy to hit because it's so long, and removing it makes the fight easier. You can break his head, chest, back, and front claws and sever his tail for crafting materials. You can use pitfall traps, shock traps, dung bombs, flash bombs, and sonic bombs against Lagiacrus. A sonic bomb will make him flinch and drop a shiny item. Even though Lagiacrus was initially designed for underwater combat, the land combat is still fun and enjoyable. One last thing that I want to mention is that Lagiacrus has two related species. The subspecies Ivory Lagiacrus and the rare species Abyssal Lagiacrus, both introduced in Monster Hunter 3 Ultimate. Ivory Lagiacrus is more often seen on land, preferring a terrestrial lifestyle and spending very little time in the water. Its body is also much wider compared to the usual blue of the regular Lagiacrus. Meanwhile, the Abyssal Lagiacrus is larger than a regular one and prefers the darkest and deepest depths of the sea. Its eyes glow red, its body is bioluminescent, and its shell is black. The horns and spines on its back and neck are also bigger and more prominent. Abyssal Lagiacrus is harder to kill because it is always charged at maximum power and has several additional thunder abilities. It is also very rare to see Abyssal Lagiacrus on land. With that said, should Lagiacrus return to Monster Hunter Wilds? The answer is a resounding yes. Lagiacrus should return to Monster Hunter Wilds, and I believe he's already coming back, and here's why. The first clue to Lagiacrus' return was in the last trailer showcasing a new Leviathan monster, Balahara. Balahara is a proof that Capcom has finally figured out how to get a skeleton similar to Lagiacrus to work on the new RE engine. This was a major issue Capcom had with Monster Hunter World and Iceborne. While Balahara is different from Lagiacrus in terms of function, combat, and visual design, they share a large body that stays on the ground. Remember what Capcom said previously. The core issue with Lagiacrus was that a large part of his body stays on the ground. Clearly, this has been solved with Balahara, which can traverse through the sand like a fish swimming through water. I am making a bold prediction. Lagiacrus is 100% coming back, and I will be genuinely shocked if he does not. It will disappoint fans and be a wasted opportunity. Another reason why I'm confident that Lagiacrus has a high chance of returning is that he was rated as the top 3rd monster in the Hunter's Choice during the 20th anniversary event of Monster Hunter. Despite missing an entire generation, the monster is clearly loved by many, including myself, and the majority of the community wants him to make a comeback. If he doesn't come back at the launch of Monster Hunter Wilds, then he will most likely return in the expansion. If he doesn't return in the 6th generation at all, then we can assume Capcom would want him back with a newly developed underwater combat system in the 7th generation. But that won't happen until the early 2030s for the PS6 and the next Xbox. I'll be pretty old by then. And if Rurikon is our great Monster Hunter uncle now, he'll be a great grandpa by the time that happens. Shout out to Rurikon, one of my favorite Monster Hunter creators. Much love to you, brother, if you're watching this. Anyway, back to Lagiacrus. I'm curious about whether Capcom would redesign him in terms of how he fights. Don't forget, we can now carry 2 weapons into the field and switch between them. So I'm wondering how Capcom plans to adjust Lagiacrus for hunters to take advantage of the 2 weapons. Or if they will just give him some new moves moves and call it a day. Honestly, I hope Capcom doesn't change him much and keeps him relatively the same but fresh. I hope the thunder element stays because it's awesome. Whatever you do, Capcom, please do not change his visual design because in my opinion, it's perfect. I can't wait to see Lagiacrus' visual fidelity on a new engine. It will be glorious. If Lagiacrus returns, he won't be in the Windward Plains as he's not a desert monster. He will likely reside on an island near a coast similar to his biome in Monster Hunter Tri. Capcom hasn't told us what biomes to expect or how everything is connected or separated. Perhaps that should be a topic for another video. Let me know in the comments if you think it would be fun to watch and speculate about. Capcom made it clear with Monster Hunter Wilds that they want a much deeper, more immersive and dynamic ecosystem. If Lagiacrus is implemented, I expect many interesting interactions. Can you imagine Lagiacrus getting into random fights with wildlife or being jumped on by smaller predators like Doshigoma being attacked by a herd? I sure can, and it will be amazing. With all that said, I sincerely believe Lagiacrus is a worthy monster that needs to return to Monster Hunter Wilds. Fellow hunters, please let me know in the comments if you want Lagiacrus to return and how you want Capcom to do it. Would you want any changes for Lagiacrus? And if so, what are they? Let me know how you feel about the series as a whole and which monsters you'd like me to cover in future episodes. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to hit like and subscribe with notifications turned on. Peace out and happy hunting.